Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Israel has threatened to launch more attacks on the embattled Gaza Strip before considering a ceasefire despite calls for restraint. Speaking from the southern city of Ashkelon, Defense Minister Benny Gantz said there is no specific date to end the offensive. Responding, Hamas says it is ready for escalation if Israel increases its attacks on the besieged strip. 49 Palestinians, including 14 children, have been killed in relentless Israeli strikes since Monday. Meanwhile, Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan says the international community must teach a deterrent lesson to Israel. In a phone call to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, Erdogan said international peacekeepers should be sent to the region to help safeguard Palestinians. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has also expressed solidarity with the people of Palestine. In Afghanistan, security forces have mounted an operation to recapture a district outside Kabul just before the start of a three-day ceasefire at midnight. Special forces have been deployed in the area to retake the district from the Taliban after government troops made a tactical retreat on Tuesday. Local officials have warned that fighting would reach the gates of Kabul in a few days if the district is not recaptured soon. The World Health Organization says the Indian variant of COVID-19 has now been detected in 44 countries. India has logged its record of over 4,200 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 348,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded 104 deaths and more than 2,800 cases since yesterday. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.3 million lives and infected over 159 million people. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Israel has threatened to launch more attacks on the embattled Gaza Strip before considering a ceasefire despite calls for restraint. Speaking from the southern city of Ashkelon, Defense Minister Benny Gantz said there is no specific date to end the offensive. Responding, Hamas says it is ready for escalation if Israel increases its attacks on the besieged strip. The UN Middle East Peace Coordinator Tor Winsland has warned of a full-scale war in the region. 49 Palestinians, including 14 children, have been killed in relentless Israeli strikes since Monday. The airstrikes follow Israeli forces' raids at the Al-Aqsa Mosque after tensions mount over the possible eviction of Palestinians from their homes in occupied East Jerusalem. Earlier, our fellow anchor Muneeb Hamid spoke to Mr. Khalil Assali about the Israeli aggression on Palestinians.
Now, for more on this, we have with us Khalil Assali, a Palestinian journalist from Jerusalem. So thank you very much for your time now. What do you think has emboldened Israel to a point where it has unleashed this latest reign of terror on innocent Palestinians?
For the Israelis, they said that it's important for them to defend themselves. They have the right to defend themselves, so this is why they're attacking more. But what happened is actually because when Hamas launched a rocket to Jerusalem, for the Israelis, this rocket, it's called a red line. So this is why the Israelis are really attacking more and more and more in Gaza. And also what happened last night when the Hamas and Jihad Islami rockets reach Tel Aviv. Also, this is something for the Israelis and let Netanyahu and other partners in the government to decide to continue more and more and more, despite that there are some kind of some kind of relationship between Israel and Egypt, that Egypt tried to help to calm the situation, but until now, no. It seems that this operation will continue another couple of days, and the latest news that there are a couple of Israeli soldiers were killed as their car was attacked by Hamas from Gaza. So we are talking about escalation, that it's going, and there will be more and more victims. Sorry for that, and, from the Palestinian side, that they are paying more and more prices in Gaza. Despite what's going on in Gaza, there are also another tension inside Israel between the Arabs and Jews, and even Benjamin Netanyahu. Just now, he went to one of the biggest city in Israel called Akka, which is he going to declare like emergency case in the cities, mixed cities between Arab and Jews. And the third point that is really also keep tension the situation is in Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Haram Sharif, that is still not quiet, and still there are more demonstration, and still the Israelis army police entering the Aqsa in every couple of hours. So we are talking about really huge bad situation in Israel. And today, for example, one of the major newspapers in Israel have a huge article says the state is in burn.
Right now, also, Khalil, tell us, has it got anything to do with the severe political instability inside Israel?
Actually, this will help Netanyahu. It's not to help his opposition party, because in Israel, usually when there is some kind of security tension, all the party, even the opposition party, will sit next to the government and accept their policy. So actually, no, this is helping Netanyahu. It's not the opposite. And if this, what we call it, war or operation, continue in Gaza, it's good for Netanyahu to continue in his position to strengthen the relationship with some kind of right wing in the government and outside the government from the opposition. So it's good for Netanyahu.
That was Mr. Khalil Assali speaking to Indus News. Now, moving on, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the international community must teach a deterrent lesson to Israel. In a phone call to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, Erdogan said international peacekeepers should be sent to the region to help safeguard Palestinians. He urged the UN Security Council to get involved in the issue and press Israel to halt its attacks on the Palestinians. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has also expressed solidarity with the people of Palestine. On Tuesday, the OIC unanimously endorsed Pakistan's proposal for issuing a joint statement deploring Israeli attacks on Palestine. In a meeting in New York, the Council also urged the international community to send help against Israeli aggression. Afghan security forces have mounted an operation to recapture a Taliban-held district outside the capital, Kabul. This comes just before the start of a 3-day ceasefire at midnight. The Defense Ministry said it carried out airstrikes at the start of the operation. Local officials warned that the fighting may reach Kabul in a few days if the district was not taken soon, as foreign troops withdraw. The fall of the district comes days after deadly bombings outside a school in Kabul that killed 68 people, mostly schoolgirls. The United States says it has completed a 12% withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. U.S. Central Command said an equivalent of 104 cargo planes of material has so far been removed ahead of the September deadline. In a statement, the CENTCOM said that it turned over more than 1,800 pieces of equipment for destruction. It added the United States has officially handed over one facility to the Afghan National Army so far. However, it did not disclose the total number of American troops still based in Afghanistan. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the hidden figures are meant to protect the U.S. troops from possible Taliban attacks. The United States has imposed sanctions on 7 Lebanese individuals for alleged links to Hezbollah and its banking arm. In a statement, U.S. Treasury Department said it imposed the curbs for illicit transfer of $500 million on behalf of the group. It named Ibrahim Ali Dahir the chief of Hezbollah's finance operation for allegedly using personal bank account to evade U.S. sanctions. The department said the 7 men have all participated in evasive shadow banking activity. It alleged that Hezbollah continues to abuse Lebanese financial sector. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Hezbollah poses a threat to the U.S. and its allies in the Middle East. The World Health Organization says the Indian variant of COVID-19 has now been detected in 44 countries. India has logged its record of over 4,200 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 348,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.3 million lives and infected over 159 million people. More in this report.
As the world sees no major signs of pandemic getting under control, now India's variant, detected in dozens of countries, has become a new concern. A leading virologist in India said it is too early to say if infections had reached a peak. In Buxar district of Bihar state, after post-mortems, medics have sent DNA samples of 71 dead bodies for further investigations. The bodies washed ashore along the banks of the river Ganges and are expected to be of COVID-19 victims. Buxar's officials said the local villages claimed there were 100 such bodies, and they say many deaths are taking place in the rural areas that are not being reported. Medical oxygen has become a major concern, with top hospitals in Delhi and other major cities, while clinics in far-flung villages are even shorter in supply.
No doctor is coming for the visit. Nobody is telling us what medicine to give to the patient. We have to go and arrange for the oxygen ourselves. If the oxygen cylinder needs to be changed, then also we have to go to them at least 10 times to get it done. The staff just keeps saying that the doctor will come after some time. I had to go outside and bring the cylinder to the patient's room myself.
In Bangladesh, thousands walked along highways to reach ferry terminal to return home for the Eid holidays following a ban on land transport. Meanwhile, in the U.S., about 263 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered so far. From Mexico to Argentina, thousands of Latin Americans are booking flights to the U.S. to take advantage of one of the world's most successful vaccination campaigns as rollouts in their own countries sputter.
I think that it's very good that there is a chance to travel abroad and that you can get a vaccine, given that in Mexico there is no opportunity and it is too late. And you have it here in the US. The US government tells the people to get vaccinated and people don't get it. There's a lot of opportunity in regards to the vaccine over there.
The Canadian provinces of Alberta and Ontario announced to stop offering first doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine. Alberta said it was unclear when more shipments of the vaccine might arrive, while Ontario cited evidence that the risk of rare blood clots is somewhat higher than previously estimated. Brazil has also suspended AstraZeneca vaccination of pregnant women after the death of a woman.
In Pakistan, the registration for COVID-19 vaccinations for citizens aged 30 and above will begin from the 16th of May. Federal Minister for Planning and Development Asad Umar announced the decision in a tweet. Meanwhile, the country has recorded 104 deaths and over 2,800 cases of the virus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the nationwide death toll has reached 19,210. The caseload has crossed 867,000, out of which over 771,000 have recovered. Meanwhile, the number of active cases stands above 76,000. Turkey and Saudi Arabia have agreed to maintain their newly initiated dialogue to address disagreements. The announcement came after Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu met with his Saudi counterpart in Makkah. In a press briefing, Cavusoglu said he held a very open and frank meeting with Prince Faisal bin Farhan. He said the two sides discussed measures needed to enhance cooperation on regional issues.
I want to thank my brother Prince Faisal, the foreign minister, for his invitation and hospitality. We had a very open and frank meeting and we discussed what we can do in terms of our bilateral relations. We addressed some problematic areas in our relationships and what we can do to solve them. We sincerely and openly discussed how to increase our cooperation.
The talks are aimed at overcoming a Riyadh-Ankara rift over the 2018 killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul. Now moving on, 2 protesters have been killed in clashes with security forces in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The protesters were commemorating a deadly raid of a demonstration camp 2 years ago outside the military's headquarters. Demonstrations sprung up across the capital and protesters blocked roads with bricks and tires. Medics say more than 20 people were injured as security forces fired live rounds and tear gas on protesters. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok described the use of gunfire against peaceful protesters as a crime that demands immediate justice. Condemning the killings, the military said it will fully cooperate with the judicial authorities to investigate the incident. In Myanmar, protesters have taken to the streets again, opposing the military regime across the country. In the Kayah state, young people dressed as cavemen and women in a protest against the junta. Educators and students have called for a boycott of education under the military rule in Magwe region. Meanwhile, the civil disobedience campaign organizers say Myanmar should exit ASEAN unless it reforms itself. In a tweet, the group said Myanmar does not serve the interest of the people in the region, but the autocrats and their businesses' interest. According to a local advocacy group, at least 783 civilians have been killed in the junta's crackdown on dissent so far. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The U.S. says the largest UN mission will monitor the Iraq elections in October this year. U.S. envoy says the UN team should be sizable enough to deter fraud, increase turnout, and rebuild trust in Iraq's democracy. In a Security Council meeting, U.S. envoy Linda Thomas-Greenfield said this team will be more advanced and better equipped. She said armed actors of violence against citizens, security forces, and journalists threatened to undermine the election. UN Special Representative for Iraq, Janine Harris-Paschal, said disinformation must be combated with facts. She also warned boycotting elections is risky business and comes potentially at high costs. Iraqis are due to go to the polls in October, more than 3 years after the previous national vote. Britain says it will invest $31 million to help vulnerable countries build up their cyber defenses to counter online threats. Addressing an online security conference, Foreign Minister Dominic Raab called for an action to ensure a cyberspace that was open and peaceful. He added that some hostile states wanted to undermine democratic elections and turn the internet into a lawless space. Raab said Britain will collaborate with global agency Interpol to set up a new cyber operations hub in Africa. The hub will operate across 5 African countries to help fight cybercrime in the fast-growing economies. In Colombia, the death toll from nearly 2 weeks of anti-government protest has risen to 42. Bogota's human rights ombudsman says the victims include 41 civilians and 1 police officer. In a tweet, the ombudsman office called for all necessary measures to put an end to the violence. Protest leaders have called for a national strike today after a meeting with President Ivan Duque yielded no results. Violent demonstrations began on the 28th of April over a now canceled tax plan. Protesters' demands have expanded to include a basic income and end to police violence and the withdrawal of health reform. Meanwhile, UN Security Council adopted a resolution to extend its peace monitoring mission in Colombia. In the United Kingdom, the first major indoor music event with a live audience was held in London in over a year. Some 4,000 people attended the Brit Awards on Tuesday night. The audience did not have to wear masks or practice social distancing to witness Britain's pop music honors. The ceremony featured live performances by artists such as Dua Lipa, Arlo Parks, and Sir John Elton. They described their act to frontline health workers. Women won most of the awards at the ceremony, while Taylor Swift became the first woman to be awarded the rare Global Icon Award. The ceremony was part of the British government's research to establish whether big events can be held in closed environments without social distancing. In Brazil, an iconic Rio de Janeiro theater has reopened again after a year of closure. It is gradually welcoming musicians, dancers, and singers to offer virtual shows. This report has the details.
Theatre is one of the last sectors to come back in Brazil. due to the challenges of social distancing for audiences amid the coronavirus pandemic. The artist's return to the theatre is limited and only for rehearsals and recording of shows. Nonetheless, musicians and dancers are just happy to return to the stage.
No matter how much your flame is lit, there comes a time when it diminishes, and we feel that a little bit. As a musician, I feel that. So, this virtual concert that we are preparing ignited that flame again. We need this to perform in the theater. The artist needs to be on the stage. We have the need.
Rio Theatre's ballet students and instructors never gave up hope of returning to the stage, and after months of waiting, their wishes have come true.
The Brazilians have a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith, and I transmit that to my students. We have faith that a better day will come. We have faith that everyone will be vaccinated. We have faith that everything will return to normal, and I carry that with me and pass it on my students. And hope can never die.
Rio's Theatre inaugurated its concert season on 7th of May with the string ensemble performing works of Peter Warlock and Eric Elgar. In Brazil, thousands of entertainers were thrown out of work when the country's theatres closed last year.
The United Nations says the world economy will fare better this year than predictions after robust rebounds in China and the United States. The United Nations revised up the global growth in a mid-year update of its World Economic Situation and Prospects 2021. It now predicts the world economy will grow by 5.4% in 2021 instead of January's 4.7% forecast. According to the update, the economy will return to positive territory as China and the United States will register impressive growth. It revised its 2021 growth forecast for China from 7.2 to 8.2%, and for the United States from 3.4 to 6.2%. The United Kingdom says the post-Brexit trade rules for Northern Ireland may not be sustainable for long. In a statement, British negotiator and Junior Minister David Frost said the current protocols don't seem workable. He said solutions must be found rapidly in order to protect the 1998 Belfast Agreement between the United Kingdom and Ireland. London and Brussels had agreed to keep Northern Ireland within the EU's trading sphere, avoiding a hard border in Ireland. However, trade barriers, including a customs border between the province and the rest of the United Kingdom, were introduced as part of the Brexit deal. European stocks have gained slightly as global markets geared up for a key data release, including the latest reading of U.S. inflation. London's FTSE is leading the gains, adding over 0.5%. Frankfurt's DAX and the Pan-European Stock 600 have also edged up fractionally. However, Italy's FTSE MIB and the CAC 40 in Paris are trading flat. Earlier, Asian bourses traded mixed, where Seoul's Kospi, Japan's Nikkei 225, and Australia's ASX 200 shed, while shares in mainland China and Hong Kong edged up marginally. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.